Put some yellow on that line. Now here's a question for you guys. Did you practice your brush strokes? This morning or before you started painting, did you practice your brush strokes? I'm just coming in here and putting in these lines. I wasn't actually planning on doing it, but since I have the right color, I'm going to do them anyway. They're very faint. And they will almost completely disappear under all the layers that are going to go on top. Move that out of the way a bit now. But I want them there anyway. Some of it might show through, some of it might not. This one gets a little wiggly. And that's another thing. Paint what you see. Okay, here it goes up and then down and then back up. So we think these lines are perfectly straight, but in fact they're not. So paint what you see. There again. And all of a sudden that looks so much more realistic because I put those in. And I'm just going to connect these two. And again, doesn't it almost look complete? Perfect. This one I can't really see so much because of the way the leaf is bent. And I feel like there should be another one in the middle here. Maybe something like that. Okay. So we put that yellow in. That's a pretty green yellow. I'm going to add some raw sienna in here. And I'm working from lighter tones. These colors are really not what we're seeing. We're doing the undertones. So if you've seen some of my tutorials already, you'll know that I go really wacky, okay? So I've got, you know, like this guy is purple, and it's very possible that when I paint him, I will paint him orange and then paint the purple on top. Or, not orange, wait, yellow, sorry. I would paint him yellow underneath, and then I would paint the orange on top. But that is a way of doing the opposites, doing the complementaries underneath. There's lots of different ways to paint your underpaintings. You can also paint exactly what you see and just try to match it exactly. But, you know, there's so many different ways to do it. Sometimes it's more fun. So right now, when it's done, it will look more realistic. At the moment, I'm just laying in some kind of like the colors we don't see, the undercolors. The underpainting, as I like to call it. So, we're down in here, and I'm getting some of those little brown spots, so for them I'm going to do some dabbing, because they're like little spotty things, and they don't cross the line, so it's just... I'm going to use this opportunity to draw in, because again I have the right color on my brush, to draw a second line right next to the first one, but on the lower side or closer to me, on the right side of that yellow line, which is going to give it a little more depth. And I could go ahead and do that on all the lines if I wanted to, but I want to just give it a little more. So I've got the brown on there. I'm going to continue working on here because it's a lovely little spot to do this, and because that brown is still dark, sorry, it's still wet, I want to add in this slightly darker brown. And this is like a little burnt sienna mixed with a bit of raw sienna. And here's like a little splotchy. It's getting pretty thick too, but that's okay. Yes, I know I'm doing a lot of detail in this tiny little spot, but this whole piece could take me a week if I wanted to. I just want to show you guys how to do little detailed areas. So that was a little too much water. I'm going to come back with a brush I just dried off a little bit and just suck out that little bead of water. Okay, I put it in and it helped mix the colors together, but I don't want to leave it there. And voila. And where were we? Let's go right up against this. Now we have a vein in the middle, so I don't want to cross the vein because the vein is actually straight. There's a little yellow there. I'm just going to wiggle it around, pull it across, gently come up, because that's what's happening over here. This part is green. Okay, maybe in the middle I might add a little green. I think there's some there. Over there. You do not have to use a tiny brush in order to get really fine detail. You can make beautiful teeny tiny lines with your big brushes. You just have to practice. You also don't have to hold your brush straight up. A lot of people say hold your brush all the way up and you can get perfectly tiny lines. It is not easy to hold your brush like this. Your hand, we're not used to drawing like that. Go ahead and hold your brush the way you normally do. Relax your hand, get it all flowing. Don't worry about it, and just draw with a tiny liney tip. You'll be fine. Practice. Practice, practice, practice. In this case I'm going really slow because it's such a tiny little spot I'm doing. And I want to wiggle it on the edge, so I'm going to go around the edge now. I like to work, well, all over the place. So we were here, now we're over here. Oh, maybe we'll be up there first, and then we'll come back to this. Actually, let's come back to this right now. Which is good. I'm just going to, because I want that to dry before I put a little bit more on top. What I'm looking for here, because it's a leaf, is every time I put a little bit of paint down, it's going to have that little tiny edge around it, and those edges are going to look like cells if they're really small. So I'm able to create tiny little leaf cells just by doing little dots, but I'm not stippling specifically. You know, we did really big stipples over here, and we're going to cover that. And this is just one way to do it, and this was the stipple or the lines. That was another way to do it. In here, we danced the color around into wet, and it all blended out. And down here, we're going to just layer it in, as well as other things. So coming up this line, I want to wiggle it because it's the edge. And this is something people often forget when painting foliage or flowers. The edge is the most important thing. The edge where it connects, those tiny details, the line in the center, those are the most important things because the edge gives all that texture, all that life to your subject. If your edge is like a basil, it's just a perfect round line and there's no interest at all, it's not going to be nearly as interesting if you have a leaf that has more of a fine edge and you've really taken your time. Or flower is a great example. Just take the brush and just give it a little wiggle. Or here it goes all the way in. Here it goes out. In fact, here there's a little bit of a twist over. I don't know where that was. Somewhere in here. I think I painted that for fun. But this one, see how beautiful those lines are? So I want to mimic the texture there. Now this was done by laying in the water and then putting the color in. And now we're just doing it paint on dry paper. So we won't get the same effect. But it doesn't matter. It'll be close enough. So I've already got my line on and it looks really good. I'm going to go back and put a few little dots to make some parts thicker and leave some parts beautifully thin. Okay, now let's pick up some yellow again, some dirty yellow. Roll my brush to get rid of all the extra paint. There's no point in dabbing it off. And let's come along here and paint the vein on this side. Okay, now with a wet brush I want to come back and soften that edge, so giving it a gradient edge. If you're not sure what that means, that just means I'm going to add the water, so there'll be one hard edge and the other edge will be soft, so it's a gradient soft, where one color bleeds out into another. Maybe put some in there. And so now that's looking pretty good. Let's come in here and try something else. Let's just put in the water. And up around this edge too. Make sure I can see where it is. Just like before, just dancing it, give it a real random splotting here. Trying not to go on top of the veins. And let's do the same thing down here, because this is all going to be a base layer. And the rest of the leaf is brown, or sorry, is green. So this was the really important part, was this one big strip right in the middle that's going to be brown. And there's another darker spot in here, but we could add that in right now. Okay, so I hope you got all of that because the camera decided to turn off. So we're going to leave it there. I just splotted on this little bit, just dabbed in this bit of color, did a little dancing, put some water up here. There's some yellow here, a little bit of green there, and this part in the middle is brown, and there's brown there. It's pretty simple, very straightforward. We're going to leave this and come back tomorrow, and I will do a lot more because tomorrow I have the entire morning to really tackle it. This is not, this is really not a tutorial. I can't stress that enough, where I'm teaching you, or I'm showing you how to paint a perfect leaf. What I'm trying to do is show you different techniques, lots and lots of different techniques. Hopefully in the end it'll all go together and it won't matter that I did these different techniques. And okay, not hopefully, it will. It'll all go together in the end if I get that far, and it will all blend and be beautiful, and it won't, you're not going to look at it and go, okay, like what happened, this is painted that way and this, no. It's all going to look great and it's going to fit, but I still want to show you that there are different ways to do different things. So like I said, we're going to just leave that. I'm going to rinse off my brushes. I want to hang them up. Give them a good shake. If I got the ferrule wet, I would dry it off. That one's dry from yesterday. So is that one. I'm going to give you a little assignment, an on-the-side assignment. Get out your favorite brush, twist your brush on your palette just by rolling it in your hand. Try to get a really straight, beautiful point there, and then do tiny little lines, the same way you would with a pencil, a nice sharp pencil, so you're drawing with the brush. Don't worry about holding it straight up or using super small brushes. Just work with the brush you have, take it slow, think of it as a Zen exercise, really get into it, relax, maybe do like 100 brush strokes. That's probably not a bad idea, 100 brush strokes. When you're done with that, turn this back on. I'm sure it'll be tomorrow morning, and we can continue with class.